A while back I watched some videos on some friends of mine's channels, G to the Next Level and Nefarious Wes. They did videos on tracks that they felt were immensely awesome on the Sega Genesis, and while I love the Genesis and its sound chip, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System will always be my first 16-bit love. It's the system that I grew up with and naturally have the fondest memories for its sound. But we've all heard top 10 lists with the same old stuff: Donkey Kong Country, Super Metroid, Mega Man X, Super Castlevania IV, Super Mario World, Link to the Past, Yoshi's Island. Sure, all these games are killer with amazing soundtracks, but sometimes you gotta dig a little deeper at the console to crack some crazy fun music. So this video, I'm going to attempt to do just that. Here's 10 Super NES tracks I found technically impressive, either due to the instrumentation, musicianship, or technicality. Wanderers from Ys, Not Wise, is the third entry in the Ys series. And while some would argue that the Super NES version is inferior to other renditions of the game, I remember renting this as a kid and being blown away by the intro cutscene, telling a story of Dogi and the main hero, Adol, revisiting Dogi's childhood town. The cinematics give way to what ends up being a very tedious but fun grind of an action RPG. Now, most Ys fans know how good the music in the franchise is, but the Super NES version has elements in one particular song that I've yet to find as pronounced in any other version: the shop theme, better known as Welcome. It's a short loop for sure, but there's a melody added to this version that always stood out to me as a really striking balance between the lead melody and the rest of the track. Listen to just the isolated part that was added into the Super NES version to hear it in depth. Was I the only one who flocked to this version of the song because of this? Leave a comment down below because I'm very curious. Anyway, let's move on to the next game. Some would argue that this is a no-brainer and too popular of a choice to be on this list, and while I'd agree that this is one of the more famous Fallen Brothers soundtracks, I'd argue that this is worthy of being on this list just for the instrumentation alone. While Super Castlevania IV gave this soundtrack a run for the money in terms of jazzy bass elements, Cyclops' theme turns into a progressive rock fever dream with psychedelic moments that flourish with wonder and excitement. The horns are blaring, the ride cymbal on the drums sounds so clear and clean. This track is jaw-dropping. It's also a super long song too, so grab some munchies and zone out to it. Oh, and it's also a good song to punch and kick to as well.
No, que stop this. No, que stop this. No, que stop this. No, que stop this.
Believe it or not, this is the only Rareware song on this list. Before anyone cries foul, just know I am an immensely huge fan of the Donkey Kong Country soundtracks, as well as the Battletoads games, etc, etc. David Wise is a fantastic composer, for sure, but Evelyn Fisher, or Evelyn Novakovic as she's now known, wasn't just the voice of Joanna Dark in Perfect Dark.
Something I can do for you, old woman.
She was also a talented game music composer. One of the games she worked on was Ken Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run. This has all the metrics of a Rareware baseball game. It's fun to play and the licensed teams are all there, despite the players being mostly fake other than Griffey himself. And I think maybe the Mariners, since Nintendo owned them at one point? I don't know, I didn't really play it that much, but that's not why we're here. Novakovic's score for this game is a product of the times, and we wouldn't have it any other way. 90s dance music full of loud and vivacious PCM voice samples really brings an energy to this main screen theme. It makes you want to punch a baseball in the face while screaming bass! Good times. Hats off to Mrs. Novakovic for some stellar tunes here. Mystic Quest has its haters, for sure, but the music is still the stuff of legends in my opinion. I personally like this game, and that's a discussion for another time, but what we have here is a JRPG crafted for a foreign audience outside of Japan. And while on the surface it looks like a standard Super NES JRPG, it sounds like Final Fantasy when it comes to the tunes. Oddly enough, this soundtrack wasn't composed by Nobuo Uematsu, but Yasuhiro Kawakami and specifically Ryuji Sasai, who brought out a solid heavy metal track with this battle theme. Listening to the way the melodies play together, there's some absolutely stellar harmonizing here, which brings out the vibrant nature of such a striking track. There's plenty of other songs like this on the console, and while Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI or 3 or whatever you want to call it has the superior soundtracks overall, this is easily a song that hits harder than anything on those soundtracks regarding the heaviness factor. Ah yes, Yuzo Koshiro. While he's most famous for ActRaiser on the Super NES and Streets of Rage's trilogy tunes on the Genesis, Super Adventure Island is, for me, where he made the Super NES sound radio-friendly. The sampled drums on this track, Stage 2-3, make swimming through a whale's stomach sound so chill and funky fresh that this could easily have passed for a New Jack Swing hit from the early 90s if it was actually played on the radio. Koshiro was inspired by popular music, electronic dance music specifically, so to hear him bust out this tight jam while trying to escape a watery grave is really amazing. I mean, these drums, they punch so hard. My boy Master Higgins never grooved out harder. Okay, so not every game on this video is going to be amazing. Case in point, Mark Davis the Fishing Master. Who is Mark Davis? Why is he the Fishing Master? Why am I playing this? Well, I'm very bad at this game, but that doesn't stop me from showcasing some sweet Natsume jams. Kinyo Yamashita has more famous Super NES soundtracks that she's worked on, such as Mega Man X3 and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but her sound comes through with the most exciting, fishing music you'll ever hear on a Super NES. I mean, just listen to this. This was wasted on a fishing game? Come on! The worst part is, as soon as you cast your line, the music stops playing. So, I just stopped trying to catch fish and just made Mark Davis dance to the beat. Dance, my puppet, dance! You didn't think I'd leave Castlevania off my list, did you? Come on, it's not like you don't subscribe to this channel or something. You know what? You should fix that. I know, I couldn't help myself. Sorry I self-promoted. I'll go back to talking about what really matters here. Castlevania's music. Super Castlevania IV is one of the greatest video game soundtracks ever. It completely pushed the boundaries for what game music could be way back in the early 90s. While Dracula X didn't get the respect that Rondo of Blood got, with Dracula X we got a very different port of a game most of us didn't know existed, if you can even call it a port. But what Dracula X lacks for in comparison to either of those two games, it makes up for in technicality of music. Here we have Konami's finest push to make MIDI sound like Red Book audio, with plucky guitars, lush synth string arrangements, and snappy drums. It's a solid, funky dance track with enough Baroque elements to remain a Castlevania track, but it pushes the boundaries of what the Super NES was capable of just on the instrumentation alone. I know what you're thinking. But bro, what about Spark Mandrill or Storm Eagle? This isn't one of those kinds of lists. Mega Man X2, for me at least, opened the floodgates regarding technically impressive music on the Super NES. That doesn't mean I wasn't impressed by Mega Man X. I'm just saying it kind of was a more progressive kind of soundtrack, but I don't know, maybe I'm splitting hairs. Here's a fun fact: the Volcanic Zone track was supposedly going to be an unused song until the rest of the development team heard it. Can you imagine if that godly amazing track wasn't in this game? Anyways, while that song is definitely my favorite in the game, Red Alert, also known as Magna Centipede's level, has been nipping at its heels the past few years in my brain. The parts I'm most impressed with here are twofold: the drums and the breakdown. Most of the track squabbles through a pretty fast tempo with surging lead melodies that we've all come to expect from the Mega Man X games, but the breakdown right before the drum fill is just so heavy. I just want to punch Mark Davis in the face. Wait, no, that's not right. I just want to punch Magna Centipede in the face. How do you listen to that and not headbang furiously? Following it up with this insanely progressive jazz drum fill gives the track a strong recovery to sink back into the beginning of the track. It's short, but man is it addictive to listen to. I just had to highlight something classical here. Star Wars games are notorious for bringing the best of what a licensed game has to offer to the music world. I love the Star Wars movie soundtracks, and thankfully there haven't been too many games that really butchered these opuses. But Super Empire Strikes Back on the Super NES, or Super Star Wars Super Empire Strikes Back, whatever you want to call it, does its best to convey an orchestra with the Super Nintendo's stellar Sony-created sound chip. The beginning of the track oozes character, and though it's quiet, it does a nice job of building atmosphere to match its cinematic counterpart. The entire trilogy of games does this, but this track in particular worked really well with the tone and style of the movies, which is why it stands out to me. And can we talk about how brutally difficult these games are? Man, I can't believe I beat all 3 of these as a kid. Last on our list is a game that not many people talk about, and the reason for that is, well, the Super Scope. The Super NES add-on peripheral really doesn't get enough love, which is a shame because there's two games that deserve to be discussed, Battle Clash and Metal Combat. But we'll have to get back to those some other time. This song from Battle Clash, though, Garam, really made my ears perk up. I'm a sucker for anything with classical Baroque elements, and this track brought some shred to that style. While not an overly technical piece of music, the strength of the sound was really vibrant and brash, and it came across as something you don't hear every day from a first-party Super NES game. I know I left out the Super Metroids and the Mario Worlds and Link to the Past, but this was a track that was just obscure enough to remain on my radar. Well, that's my list of 10 Super NES tracks that are really impressive that you needed to hear. And I hope I was able to introduce you to some stuff that you haven't heard before, and maybe had you reconsider your opinions or thoughts on tracks that I did showcase. What are your thoughts on the music played, and what are your thoughts on this topic in general? Do you have a track that you feel is impressive enough that people really need to hear it, and it's kind of under the radar? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like this video if you can, and spread the word via your social media. That really helps get the word out and gets people talking about music on the Super NES, and that's what we're here for. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more from the channel.